This episode of Welcome to Nerdtopia was streamed in front of a live internet audience.
Ha!
What's happening, Nerdtopians?
What's up, y'all?
Welcome back. We are back for another round of nerdy goodness. I am Doolin Dalton.
I'm Ryan Visingard.
Visingard. He's back. I always love it when we get this guy in here.
Visingard.
And here we go.
Catching in the corner of Dr. Doom's basement, but he's our homie, so we never ever pay rent. It's N to the E to the Nerdtopia, like a plasma cannon, man, you know we're steady smoking. Yep, comics, books, movies, and video games are our claim to fame and recognition of name. We've changed the reign, but kept it the same, and we hope to gain acclaim from time of the game. We're coming at you reaping from Walking Dead, and you know we got pissed when the Redding ran red. A plethora of guests, even more than Bill and Ted. The ratings of the Lost are gonna go to our head. It's dangerous to go alone, your iPod should have us, and Supergirl's got a back and that you can trust. We're blowing up crazy large, like our name was Alderaan, so let's give a hand to Doolin, cause his mic is on. Word.
How's your week been, man? I really wanted to get an episode out this week. Unfortunately, just coming back in from DragonCon and everything. And let me go ahead and preface this podcast by saying, at the time you're listening to this, we are actually live on our Facebook page right now. So if you hear me stop and talk to somebody, it's somebody who was listening to the feed and then commented live. I think we did that last time where I stopped and I talked to somebody and somebody messaged me and they were like, who are you talking to? And I was like, oh, we were live, and somebody kind of tuned in. So
we're just talking to people in the walls.
So yeah, so if you're listening and you want to chime in on the conversation, man, like, we can see you. Just go ahead, hop right in there, and we'll respond to whatever you guys have to say.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I almost wasn't going to put out an episode this week, man. Came back from DragonCon on Monday after having been there all week.
I'm sure that wiped you out.
Dude, oh my God, man. It's like so exhausting and so much fun. It was 70,000 people there this year.
Wow. Well, you know, the sad part is I have never gone to a DragonCon.
How do you never go to DragonCon?
It's quite an expensive venture.
It is, man.
Generally, I see it's done in groups, and I need to find my niche. I don't have a whole lot of people that I hang out with.
Well, I mean, maybe you should come with me next year, man. We should do it. It's when you get there. I remember, like, I went in 2011, and then from 2011, 2012, skipped 13, and then went 14, 15, and then 16 of this year. And I mean, when you just get there, it's like 9 city blocks of downtown Atlanta, and it's just so flippin' huge. Mm-hmm. Some of the things I like a lot about it. I was going to do like a podcast from DragonCon, and then I was having too much fun. I'm like, I'm not going to stop.
Right, of course. I mean, you probably got into the moment of things like everybody else.
Hello, Rachel and Rachel. Sorry.
Oh, it's Rachel.
Rachel and Rachel.
R&R. What's up?
Yeah, but you get there, but there's so much to do. It's so big, so extensive that, you know, you could never possibly hope to do all of one DragonCon. What you should do is just pick your fandom and then just try to stick with that. They actually had a podcasting panel there I was going to go check out, but I got sidetracked and went in to see Charlie Cox of Daredevil.
How was that?
He was doing a panel. It was great, man. It's Charlie Cox. I'm a big fan. But yeah, he just talked a little bit about the experience of making Daredevil, and that was kind of fun. Going around seeing the cosplays night after night was always kind of fun. I had a couple I did myself. Mm-hmm. If you tuned in on the live Facebook feed, you would have seen me as a Kingdom Come Superman, kind of walking around talking to people. Did a couple of the cosplay photo shoots, which was fun. The Wonder Woman photo shoot we did, and George Perez himself popped in to say hi to everybody there, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, George Perez, for those of you who don't know, very prominent DC Comics writer. He's done anything and everything within the DC universe, and I pulled him aside. I'm like, hey man, it's you're here at this cosplay photo shoot and you're seeing all these people that are your fans. It's really cool that you come out here to do this. And he was just like, are you kidding me? Like, you guys honor me by doing this. This is amazing.
So that's good. I've had experiences with celebrities and writers and comic book artists that sometimes they're great and sometimes they are not so great.
No, George Perez is like your grandpa, man. Like, he's just really sweet old guy, and he gets in there, and then when we finished the photo shoot, it was all Wonder Women, and he's like, all right, George, get in the middle. So he goes in the middle, and he's just like flocked left and right by all of these like beautiful women cosplaying as Wonder Woman. He's like, for anybody who ever said I was a nerd, you can suck it.
Right. It's definitely the generation of the nerds.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. And so you run into people like that, and there was one day, I think it was Sunday only, that this guy was there, but I usually pick at least one day for myself to just kind of walk around the con aimlessly, just see what I run into. You know, I've met a lot of people that way. It's kind of interesting. So I'm walking down this side street in downtown Atlanta behind one of the hotels. I see this kid kind of standing on the side of the road. I don't really think anything of it. You know, I walk by and I just kind of like caught his vision out of the corner of my eye, and he's got this like really nasty scowl on his face. Like, I'm just like, God, what the? And it's like that. And so I'm like, what is this guy's problem? He looks like an asshole. And I continue to walk, and this kid had dark hair. I continue to walk, and like my brain is like putting together the pieces of this kid's face, and I'm seeing the scowl, and like 2 seconds go by and it clicks on my head. I'm like, that was motherfucking Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones, Jack Gleason, yeah. And I turned around and he was already walking away. I wouldn't have bothered him even so, but I was just kind of like, I just walked by King Joffrey on the road, man.
You could have totally taken a picture with him and had the badass bad guy.
I met a couple, so not so many this year.
What kind of celebrities did they have? How's that?
Dude, they had tons of them. You know, Charlie Cox. They had Jack Gleason there, as I said. A lot of the actors that do the CW stuff. I think they had some of the doctors from some of the guests from Doctor Who on there. It's really just kind of a crapshoot, whatever you get there at DragonCon, but it's a little bit of everything, man. It's a big mishmash. But I'm gonna go ahead and move off of DragonCon because they're like, oh, this fucking DragonCon.
I got to go to DragonCon. Yeah. Look at me. My name's Doolin.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't want to harp on it too much.
All right, fine. Move on. What you got?
So we'll go ahead and move on. What we got going in the nerd news this week? Nerd news. We've got one thing that I thought was particularly interesting. I think this was last week, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to kind of talk about it too much. George R.R. Martin said that another one of his series is coming to television, which I thought was kind of cool.
And what's the name of this
one? Wildcards. Okay, Wildcards is something that everybody's such a big fan of Game of Thrones, so it will be interesting to see how another one of his series goes over on television. But Wildcards is, I'll give you the premise because I checked it out today. Apparently it was a book series that he started writing back in the 80s. And wow. it's a post-alternate World War II story. So basically, history takes place as it does up until World War II. In 1946, there's this alien virus that sweeps over New York City, and it affects something like it didn't say, it just said tens of thousands of people.
Right.
So given that it affects different people in different ways, hence it's called the wild card virus. So 90% of the people that are affected with this virus die. Of the 10 that don't die, 9% have various mutations.
Okay.
They didn't really say too much about it, so I'm guessing that maybe those are like mutants, maybe villains, something like that. And then 1% of the people that were affected with this virus became what were known as aces, superhumans, pretty much. And then I think there's a secondary superhuman called deuces. Deuces are superhumans that were not quite as powerful as aces.
Okay.
So that's how they... Yeah, lesser superheroes. So you have like the guy that like, I can start a microwave from across the room.
What was that one X-Men? Forget the character's name. All he could do is interpret it different languages. I thought that.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty awesome thing to have in real life, but not so much for the X-Men.
In the comics. No.
Yeah, not in the comic books. No. In real life, that would be amazing. Like, that would be a badass thing to have. But yeah, that's. They had him in the X-Men?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Send that guy down the road, man. Hey, go to Avengers headquarters, man. Those guys will take anybody.
Yeah, they will. But so the series, he wrote it in the 80s.
Right. Sorry, I think the first one was like 87, something like that.
Okay, it sounds interesting.
Superhero world has kind of been progressing since the 40s. Okay. So that's kind of how they introduced the superheroes into
almost
this
like
world.
The, Captain America kind of style, where they're doing the whole World War II, and then it moves into
and then it kind of moves up from there.
Atomic Age and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's interesting. That led a lot of.
What channel will it be on?
I don't know. I'm hoping
it's Showtime.
Showtime would be cool. I don't think they've had a channel pick it up yet.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. We'll see which direction they go with it as far as like.
Netflix would be a good place for it. Too.
Netflix would be pretty good. I guess you probably, given that it's more. I haven't read it. I think it might have been like, I don't know if it was for young adults or not.
Right. Okay.
But it's George R. Martin's superhero universe, and I didn't even know that existed until I read the article.
I mean, then again, I didn't know who he was until Game of Thrones.
True. Yeah, but a lot of the fans were kind of up in arms about that because he still has 2 more books to write. The Game of Thrones
so they're
book
giving
series.
Him shit for it.
They're giving him a lot of shit for it, and I'm like, well, hold on, wait a minute, back at the truck, because I'm one of the first person like, look, bro, like you've been writing these Game of Thrones books for like 20 years,
right? Why
don't you go ahead and finish it instead of getting involved in this other project? Because I mean, not to split hairs or anything, but you're not spring chicken there, buddy. You got to
right.
You're getting older.
Okay, so what's his involvement in it?
Well, that's exactly it. These are, first of all, they're based on books he's already written, so he's not stopping to write these books. He's not writing the screenplays for the show or anything like that. And he basically came out and said, "I'm not going to have." If anything, he will have very little involvement in the show.
Okay.
Because he's got to finish his last 2 books. Like, that's his focus right now. He needs to do it.
Did he actually say that? Because, he was taking a break there to be Mr. Celebrity.
Yeah, he really was. But I think he's back to writing the books.
I get it. He's a writer. He doesn't have to write it if he doesn't want to. But, he has put some major kinks in a lot of the fans. They thought that this stuff was going to be moving a lot quicker than it is. So.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, especially for people who started reading the books back in the 90s. It could be frustrating at that point, because you're like, all right, buddy, I've given you 20 years of my life.
Here's the great thing, though. I was thinking about it. About 90%, I'd say, of the book readers have moved over to the series on TV. Now, what's cool is they're going to deviate. Mm-hmm. So his books may be able to touch on some of the key events that you see in the TV series, but it's always going to be a lot more fun for anybody who is a fan of the books to be able to
get little things that you don't usually catch.
Yeah, and he's not going to copy what they did in the show. He said that straight up, that they're going to be a little bit. There are key elements that are in it that are the same, but all the events leading up to those key elements will be different. So
right.
It's kind of cool that the fans can jump on there and it's a different ending.
A little bit different, sure. Yeah. So that's the one thing I wanted to go ahead and pull out of the nerd news today. Another thing I just read this past week, Fox, speaking of superhero shows, Fox has picked up a DC property. Okay. Fox is already doing Gotham. Yeah.
Yay.
Not too excited?
No, the DV, I'm sorry, for me, I mean, I watched Gotham and I got into it just for the sake of getting into it.
I didn't.
I was angry because I wanted to see how they interpreted the villains.
Sure.
But, I told you, I don't like what they do with the DC stuff on TV. I know a lot of fans are out there, they like it, but it just feels too Dawson Creek mixed with superhero stuff. I don't buy in. I did. Well, and I kind of got.
Have you ever watched Arrow?
I have not.
Maybe you should watch Arrow. It's on Netflix. Just watch it.
Okay.
It's not Dawson's Creeky. If anything else, I thought it had kind of like, I was like, it was almost like the tone from the first season when I was watching it. It was almost like they wanted to try to do Batman. But then fell just short of it and like, all right, let's do Arrow instead. But it's that kind of tone.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Check that out. And then if you like that, the pilot episode of Flash actually kind of starts during Arrow. Okay. So that's how they kind of tie it together. And Flash is apparently has more of a following than Arrow now at this point. So, but regardless, I can understand why you would think that, especially with like the new Supergirl series.
Well, and I got burnt. I got burned when it came to Smallville.
Yeah.
So
you also got to think though. I feel like that's kind of the last generation of superhero TV shows,
right,
with like Smallville and then the failed Birds of Prey series. Like they were still kind of.
Birds of Prey was all right.
I didn't care for it.
I liked it, but then again, it's because they had that really hot.
Aubrey Gotham was very disappointing.
Yes, that was.
I watched most of the first 3 episodes, and I could not get into it either. I tried.
I went through the first season of Gotham up until of course, the end, because they don't have it on Netflix yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really confused on how they could do such a time displacement between Batman and his villains. So it's like,
it's really messy.
Batman, so when he finally becomes Batman, you're saying that all the villains that he'll be facing are going to be like in their 50s and 60s?
I mean, if Commissioner Gordon took care of it, then what the hell is the point of Batman? Or he didn't take care of it, and they've just had these supervillains running rampant in the street for 20 years. And if that's the case, by the time Batman gets there, why do you even need them? Because apparently shit's still running, so...
I don't know. That was my main discrepancy. And of course, it's... overall, it's just kind of blah, but...
I always said with Gotham, when I heard they announced the series, I said that could be a really good idea. It'll be really good as long as they don't try to give us a celebrity march. Don't march these celebrity characters in there that we know again and again. They don't need to be there. As long as they can stay away from it.
They're doing that because the ratings. When the ratings start to fall, they say, hey, I'm going to pull this out of my hat.
I don't care about those characters in this show.
Right.
You could do some really cool serial villain characters, make them original, whatever. These could be the people that, Jim Gordon dealt with during his time as a detective.
Right.
But we're getting way off track there. I did an entire episode on Gotham. Yeah, I did. It was episode 2. But on Fox, the CW's picked up another DC property, and it's Black Lightning.
I don't know who this character is at all.
It's because you're racist. If he's black, I don't want to read it.
Oh.
I'm kidding. No, Black Lightning was a character. Actually, he started as his own comic book series back in '77, and since then, his comic series was canceled. But then he would be kind of a recurring character in I think Outsiders is one that he was a big part of, and then also Justice League.
Okay.
The character is he's an inborn metahuman, I guess. He's just kind of born with these abilities, kind of like DC's version of a mutant, I'm assuming. But he's like an Olympic athlete that comes back to his hometown and sees the ruin that it came in. He's from Suicide Slum, which is basically the slums of Metropolis, Superman's hometown. Well, not his hometown, but where Superman has relocated to. But he's from Suicide Slum in Gotham, and I guess he takes on the street crimes with these lightning powers that he has. Black Lightning, that's coming to Fox.
I don't know.
I don't think I'm going to watch it.
I'm a racist, so the title, the title just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. Black Lightning, Grease Lightning.
That's a musical, I think.
Oh, is it? I wouldn't know. I'm sorry, I'm not an actor.
Well, I won't hold it against you. But, I don't know. I've kind of mixed feelings on it. It's one of those things where I'll do like I did with Gotham. I'll watch 1 or maybe 2 and okay, let's see how it's going to go. And I also don't know if they're going to tie it in with the other TV properties or not. It'd be kind of hard to tell.
Depends on its overall feel. You know what I mean? I think if it feels like the other ones, they'll figure out a way to put them together if it's based in the same time period.
Yeah, well,
that's what they do.
We'll see.
Run them together. Supergirl's now part of all that. So.
Yeah, well, I think Supergirl actually kind of exists in an alternate universe.
No, they're doing. I heard they were doing crossover.
They
stuff.
did, but when they crossed Flash over into Supergirl, he actually crossed worlds. Oh. So she doesn't necessarily exist in the same dimension as him. I found out. Yeah. So I had to watch the clip and he crossed over into a different dimension. So that's how they kind of did it. So we'll see what happens.
I saw the Superman and
that's right. We talked about that last time. Yeah. You weren't a fan. Not a fan of the Superman look.
He does definitely look like the 52 Superman.
He has the 52 look about him.
I know you want those underwears, baby.
I want those underoos back, man. Why can't we bring back the underoos?
I don't know. Politically correctness, you know how it
is. What's offensive about red underwear?
It brings attention to his cod piece. Okay.
Well, yeah, but I'm gonna stop there. No, so that's the next superhero show we got in the works, and it makes me wonder, really, how much longer is this trend gonna go before it kind of fades out? How much more time do we have on
TV? It'll definitely fade faster than
the movies.
The movies are in. They're gonna be in for a while. They're attracting younger generations as they retire some of these characters that we get to know. Yeah, they're going to put other ones in. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're building.
Well, they did. I guess
multiverse,
and they're pulling in readers too. And it makes me wonder though, because I didn't read the titles, but I think Marvel announced this week they canceled. They axed 14 or I'm sorry, 11 of their titles.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so 11 of their titles are out. And I didn't read... I should have read it. I didn't read which titles they were, but I'll bet you anything they're titles that Fox has the movie rights to. I will bet you anything, because Marvel and Fox are just not on cozy terms.
Well, that's what we hear, and then you turn around and you hear those other rumors, you know what I mean? So, I know that they've been talking about an X-Men crossover and all that kind of stuff, and by retconning the Fantastic Four as a bridge to these different...
Well, they talked about it, since the Fantastic Four had the new one with Josh Trank's version had crossing worlds. They were basically crossing dimensions in that one, and so what they had kind of speculated that they could lead into tying them in with X-Men, and then if something was reached, tie them in with the other Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. First of all, since that movie was such a flop, that idea got axed. And second of all, I don't think that Marvel and Fox are ever going to come to anything like that. They're a little bit more cozy with their relationship with Sony, which is why we're able to see Spider-Man join the MCU now.
Right.
But
Sony's smart. I mean, they're not doing a whole lot with their films. The films that do come out kind of flop. So they did a real smart thing by giving partial franchise rights back to Marvel.
Well, I mean... Well, basically, it's pretty ingenious, really. They're able to use Spider-Man as they see fit in their movies. Sony can still make their movies. They have to get the overall stamp of approval from Marvel. But everybody that is watching those movies are now going to come and see his movie. Right. So, I mean, it's a guaranteed...
audience.
It's a guaranteed audience.
Let's just hope they pull it off. I mean, I have faith that Marvel's going to stick its hand in there pretty well, so...
Yeah, well...
It's going to fist it pretty good.
Oh, stop. No, damn it.
Political correctness,
damn it, kids. I'm sorry, kids. I apologize. You shouldn't have had to see that. So we've got that lined up, and then finally, just from the casting news of the DC Universe, which I know you like to talk about, they casted Deathstroke for the next... they didn't say if it's going to be the standalone Batman movie or if it's going to be the Justice League movie, but Joe Manganiello is going to be Deathstroke for that. So I don't know if he's going to be the villain in the Batman movie or not. I was kind of hoping for Red Hood, honestly. I thought that's the direction they were kind of going to go with it, but guess not.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they pan out from the Justice Leagues into the Batman film. Mm-hmm. I am interested in seeing Ben Affleck direct it, so I think he is a good writer, and I think he's done some great films, so I'd love to see him give a shot. But I always get upset with the Batman stuff, because in my head, after they did the Dark Knight series, I was always hoping they would do, like Sin City, taking it back to that kind of
film noir.
Yeah, and he's like he's a detective. I'd love to see a 1930s placed Batman detective, black and white kind of thing.
That'd be cool.
I think so. So I was always mad that they didn't because you can do so much with Batman where you don't have to do films that all line up together. They can be independent stories from each other.
Absolutely.
So
that's how he started on the screen. Is in the 40s they did Batman film serials.
Right.
I mean, and it was just kind of how it was done then. So just sort of like it is an homage to that. That'd be great. Maybe they should bring back film serials.
I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm also looking up here. You guys can't see it, but Doolin has this old school Batman versus Superman poster.
Yep. Let's see if you guys can see it.
When I'm looking at it, that's exactly where I'm thinking. It'd be cool, but to do it in the Sin City style of filming. You know what I mean? I thought that was... I didn't think Sin City was... The first one was pretty cool, but it was the style that made it stand out. And I would love to see a Batman film done that way. I think... that would be awesome. But that's just me. I'm hoping Ben Affleck does good with this new one.
I think he will. He's a great filmmaker.
Yeah, and I want to see how the Justice League stuff leads into it. And, I'm interested to see how they pan out with everything. So I'm hoping that they do well. I know that the DVD release of...
Well, I think Jeff Johns recently said something about, now that he's in the captain's seat, they recently just went through and made a lot of changes to their plan.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Jeff Johns went in and apparently captained the ship and said, okay, these are the things that are changing, which is what really needed to happen. You really needed to have somebody in the captain's chair, which is what I think that they were missing.
Right. I think, honestly, they gave Zack too much power. I mean...
Well, look, man, Zack Snyder
he's brilliant in his own right.
He can frame a shot.
I think the problem
he's an aesthetic genius.
He's made stuff too dark.
Yeah.
It's gone too... When we've talked about that 1,000
Yeah, we've
times
talked about it
but-
twice at least.
Yeah, so...
We got way off track.
That's how it happens.
That's it. We get derailed. It's fine. We were like, ooh, something shiny over there.
Squirrel.
Yeah. So also moving on to the nerd news in this past week, since we're kind of like wrapping the week up, and this is something that kind of just bears a little honorable mention, is 50 years of Star Trek.
What do you mean honorable mention?
Honorable mention, man. We're honoring it by mentioning it.
You have to praise it, man.
Oh,
Star Trek.
The Star Trek.
Star Trek. Brother.
Tell me about the Star Trek.
Oh, it's a great.
Or
it's a great
as my
show.
mom would say, the Star
The
Trek.
first original series, my dad used to force me to sit down and watch. I had to watch Little House on the Prairie,
Mm-hmm.
MASH, which I absolutely hated. I did not get the humor, and that opening song always made me very sad.
Suicide is painless.
But and then Star Trek, and I always loved watching that original series. And then moved into the Next Generation, of course, and I loved how they took it to a new level from that old cheesy type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be a certain level of camp that comes with Star Trek.
They I don't know, there's this. It's a soap opera in space.
Well, I mean, it was the wagon train to the stars, man. It was like Westerns were the big popular thing back then. And they're, science fiction was becoming big, and it's like, well, let's combine them. Let's have a show about the frontier in space, and that's
very true.
That's what it was in
yeah,
1966.
Yeah, and it's grown, and I can't believe it or not, that it's still around, and that it's been getting a reemergence with these new films. And
I mean, it's Star Trek is it's like Star Wars. It's one of those things that it's so deeply ingrained in our pop culture that it's never going away.
No,
even
not for long at least.
Even if they, even through.
I think how many years has it been since we've had a TV series though?
What was the last one? Enterprise, right? Was it, when did I don't remember when Enterprise went off the air. But
and it only lasted 3 seasons, I believe.
3 seasons of Enterprise.
Yeah, I don't think they bought into it. I think it was too much of a time displacement.
Well, I mean, but they went all the way through. I don't remember how many seasons they ran, but I remember watching the final episode, and they actually put Will Riker and Deanna Troi in the final episode.
Oh, did they?
They were on the holodeck and recounting these famous events that happened. So it was basically their way of putting
an end to that series.
And then the last episode is, or the last few minutes is Riker and Troi coming off of the holodeck discussing all of the great things that Enterprise did, and then they kind of bring it to a close. It was kind of neat.
That's an interesting way to end it. I didn't actually watch that series because it seems like every time that they were having problems with their ratings, they brought in the Borg, and they brought in a Borg.
No, you're thinking of Voyager.
No, they brought in the Borg and Enterprise too.
What?
Yes. There's a whole episode.
Are you kidding me?
All about the whole.
They don't.
The first contact. You know how.
I remember First Contact.
So some of those Borg pieces that blew up were on in Antarctica frozen, and they woke up. And they started building a homing beacon to call the other Borg.
Okay, that's actually legit.
So
because
it's kind of cool.
That I can actually go with, because the events of First Contact were canon.
Exactly.
That's something that happened where the Borg actually came back in time, and they didn't just create that for Enterprise.
Right.
That's pretty smart. I like that. That's clever.
That was their way of tying it in. And when they did that episode, I was like, okay, I'm happy with this. Mm-hmm. But then they started doing a lot with the relationship between the captain and the Vulcan girl. And I just kind of fell out of the stories a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, it just didn't pique my interest as much as the other TV series. I don't know why that is. Deep Space Nine, it got really good for the last 4 years.
I can't do a Deep Space Nine, man.
Dude, hey man, the writing was brilliant toward the end. And then we go back and we did Voyager was okay. I mean,
I liked Voyager because
Voyager reminded on the Borg train.
Well, I liked Voyager actually. I liked Voyager a lot. Right next to Next Generation, which is still my favorite version of the show. But I liked Voyager because, like, growing up, I was such a big fan of mythology and stuff like that. And one of my favorite stories was the Odyssey.
Right.
And Voyager was really just like the Odyssey in space.
Yeah,
it was kind of the same thing. Like, they just wanted, and I'm pretty sure that they were pretty much modeling that, because you got to consider, like, the Voyager was out there for 7 years, which is how long Odysseus was lost at sea.
Okay.
So I mean, I kind of liked it, and it was a great way, since they went like way outside of their known world, galaxy, shall we say. It was a great way for the Star Trek franchise
break away from the norm,
and to like expand its mythology, to do more, to see things that you haven't seen yet. And they did. They introduced a lot of new alien races in there. I thought, the war between the Borg and Species 8472 was
a great episode.
It was great. I mean, I love that episode.
One of my favorite episodes.
The Borg comes running to the Voyager. And they're like, oh shit, shields up, fire cannons, and they get a hailing from the Borg, and the Borg's like, guys, we need help. Like, we picked a fight with, they didn't tell they picked a fight with these guys, but obviously they did. We picked a fight with these aliens, and they're fucking us up, you guys.
I remember that. It was a big sequence when it blew up in front of Voyager, the whole the ship. That was great stuff. My personal favorite Voyager episode actually is a episode where you're following the characters, and they start melting, almost degenerating.
Interesting. Okay.
And they begin to realize that they're not the real crew of Voyager, that there was some kind of transference, and this matter created this alternate Voyager, and it was breaking down. And just they're trying to make it to the other Voyager to let them know about a certain event, or to let them
basically
know.
They're like a temporal.
They're like, we're trying. But it dove into each character, like realizing that I'm not really Catherine Janeway, and I'm not really, and how they deal with that. And then just as they're about to meet up with the other Voyager, they dissipate and just kind of break apart, and Voyager comes into like debris.
Yeah,
but not like debris. It's like
just matter molecules.
It was a really, really smart, brilliant episode. I think.
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, Star Trek has done so much for so many people, and it's such a strong fandom. And there's always that inside of our nerd culture. There's always that big question: are you a Star Wars guy or a Star Trek guy? And I'm like,
I'm both.
Why can't you be both?
I like them both. You know, they're completely different from each other. Totally different.
Well,
feelings,
I think where Star Trek is science fiction, Star Wars is science fantasy.
Right.
And therein lies the big difference.
Like we were saying, when you look at it, they use swords. They have different kind of clothing. They do a lot of stuff with martial arts and the style of which they fight. And you know what I mean? It's a completely different. And Star Trek's just. It's more. I think Star Trek would be more our kind of reality, right? You know what I mean, if it were real. So
yeah, I mean, and that's what it's based on. Is it's a very hopeful, optimistic future.
Now, have you ever seen the documentary? I think it's called Captains.
Yeah, that's with William Shatner
coming to terms with the fact that he will die one day, and on his tombstone, they will say, Captain Kirk lies here.
That is not what I recall from that at all.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, what I recall, and it's William Shatner, and he's hanging out with Patrick Stewart, and then the actress.
He goes to
it's all the people that have played the captains or commanders in the show kind of come together for this like documentary where William Shatner talks to them all about it. So he probably mentioned it.
Well, he talks a little bit. He touches on the fact that like. He didn't really know how to take that fandom at first.
Right.
And he's kind of learning to embrace it. He said that he was very abrasive about it for a very long time because of his profession. He was a very professional actor, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So he didn't want to come off as always being known as Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
So for a long time he kind of hesitated, and then now he's kind of accepted that he is part of this... Like you said,
this very mass community that loves you, like we'll put you on this pedestal forever,
So I remember I got to go to Mad Monster Party, and he was there for his birthday of all times, and they brought him out a cake, and we all ate cake with Captain Kirk, and he talked. It was really interesting. I tell you, he really didn't speak a lot about Star Trek. What he was going into was his time on Twilight Zone,
right?
And on Twilight Zone, he said back in the day, what was interesting is that not everything had to have like an episode after it that lined up. It wasn't all canon, and there wasn't this. It was like one job. You came in, you read your script, you did the one episode, and you left.
Right.
And you got plethora of work to do because it's all separate. He said now it's really hard. It was just really interesting talk. He said it was really hard for actors because everybody wants like these long running shows and characters all stay.
That's work. It's employment.
But he said it's causing other actors not to get as much work because they want that particular person in that role forever. So
right.
It was just a really interesting conversation.
And you don't look at it from the fandom side. You don't see it that way. So,
but it was interesting. It was really interesting to hear him talk about that. And he touched on Star Trek and how much of an impact it's had on him more recently in his life than when he was younger. So it's interesting to see him come to terms with a character that he played and didn't really want to take
probably had a love-hate relationship with Kirk for a long time. time.
Well, and I thought it was interesting when you go to Next Generation how they kind of split Kirk into two different people. They split him into Picard and Riker. You know what I mean?
They're two sides of that one part of Kirk.
Kind of, Kirk. He's more Riker than he is Picard, but some of the decision making, that kind of stuff, the bravery. So it's interesting.
Well, Kirk was always the Picard. It was the here's the rule book and the Prime Directive, and we follow this, and the Prime Directive is everything Starfleet. And then Kirk was the rules. Fuck the rules.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The real
Jimmy Kirk.
Yes. So, but yeah, I think it's great that it's still around. I really enjoy it. My wife was a big fan. I used to go to the Star Trek conventions all the time. I love watching the fans. Mm-hmm. They are definitely an interesting group to watch.
At this point in time, if they were going to make another movie with the Next Generation cast, would you want to watch it?
Yeah, why not? Right.
I don't know. I guess I feel like
it's kind of over, but at the same time, if it had a good story,
they still have all their.
And if they had a good story and it was still canon to their universe and didn't really mess up what J.J. Abrams was trying to
Nemesis
start.
was good. I enjoyed Nemesis. It was dark. It was really dark, but I loved it.
Now, see, I love the fact that they took the new films and they tied them in slightly.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they still respect
the whole Spock thing, and they're like, okay, so what we can do to reboot this without messing up
an alternate
years,
timeline.
An alternate timeline.
And that's perfect.
I think they did that well. So
absolutely. So, I mean, they still respect what happened before while, kind of meshing it into their own new universe. So I'm like, that couldn't have been any better, honestly.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Makes me wonder, with the new Star Trek series they have coming out, Star Trek Discovery, they've been really tight-lipped about it. STD, Star Trek Discovery. That is what it's going to be called. It's going to be called STD. Like, you can't, there's no way around that. You guys might want to rename that.
Yeah.
Paramount, if you're listening, you might want to.
So what is this one based on? I haven't really read a whole lot.
I don't know, honestly. First I heard that it was going to be something that took place like after the generation after Picard and them, but now apparently they're taking yet another step back to sometime around the Kirk era.
Oh, really?
So I don't know. So
I know for a while they were talking about doing a Worf show. I know that guy was trying to get them to do a
Michael Dorn?
Yeah, he wanted a Worf series.
We don't need a Worf series.
Unfortunately, he's a secondary character.
I mean, it's just he
did really well. I thought
he had some great episodes that featured him as the centralized character.
Well, they brought his character out more in Deep Space Nine.
That why that was.
Well, ratings.
The ratings. Yeah. They're like, oh, the ratings are going down. Shit. Let's pull in the guy. Hey, Worf, come on over. We're gonna put you over here on Deep Space Nine. And Michael Dorn's like, all right, work. I love work.
Work is great.
But yeah, 50 years of Star Trek, man. That's definitely worth mentioning here on the podcast. It's done a lot of great things for a lot of great people. It's inspired an entirely new generation of science fiction writers and filmmakers. Where do you think cell phones
came from, man?
Cell phones. I think they announced that the comm badge is something that they just put out. Like that's a thing that exists now with a Bluetooth in it. You call your friend.
I would really.
I'm getting one of those for the next DragonCon, man.
You guys need to hurry up and make teleporters so that I can go visit my family in Florida when I want. I really would like that.
They'll get on it.
Of course, it's going to be like Spaceballs, and you go down there, and all of a sudden
your ass is backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell?
Yeah, the first people to do that are going to be nervous as hell. I would be.
God. Well, I think we'll go ahead and leave it off there. Ass on the front. That's the best note to leave it off on, I think. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for those of you who joined us live.
Awesome.
Once again, follow me on my Facebook page, my YouTube page, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can get the podcast on all those mediums. And keep on coming back, guys. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been awesome, man.
For Welcome to Nerdtopia, I'm Doolin Dalton.
I'm Ryan Visingard.
And thanks for nerding out with us, guys. Have a good night. Hey, nerds. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Welcome to Nerdtopia for all new updates, videos, and live feeds of our episodes, as well as our YouTube page for episodes with visual content, or just subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes.